David, this was your first headshot in New York City 25, 26 years ago, give or take. And I think, hey, not bad, right? At least recognizable. So you're asking what I've done in the meantime. I'll just talk about the last few years. I decided to get a master's from the New School in International Relations several years ago. And I did an internship in Uganda and fell so in love with it that I moved there. I was going back and forth for many years, but in 2016 I went over for a 6-month project and Trump was elected while I was there. And I said, well, hell, I'm already living abroad. You know how there's always these people that say, oh, if he wins, I'm moving. And I was already there, so I occupied myself for 4 years, almost. I lived a really satisfying life. I worked for the Uganda USPCA, the only no-kill shelter in Uganda. I worked for a children's home. I taught workshops on resiliency. I taught 40 Congolese refugees how to speak English, got some of them into school. All in all, having a pretty good time. I, at one point, joined a Ugandan circus, which, I mean, I never really thought I would do something like that, nor did I think at 50 years old that I could be taught to do acrobatics, breathe fire, eat fire, balance a bottle on a stick, do a somersault through fire, or sit on somebody's shoulders that was sitting on a box of, like a bed of nails. So, you know, things were going pretty well over there, but I was feeling bad because my mom is getting older and my father passed away several years ago. I didn't want her to be alone. Plus, I still had that American thing where, you know, you have to be using this master's to make all this money and do all this. And I mean, the fact of the matter was I was using my master's to the best that I could be using it. But, you know, these old ways of thinking are always, you know, in the back of your mind. So I came back in January 2020, only to be completely felled by COVID by March. And when I say felled, I mean 17, 18 hours of sleep for 4 to 6 weeks, high fevers, couldn't breathe, couldn't eat, couldn't have anybody help me. People wanted to help me walk my dog, but I couldn't let them touch anything that had been in my apartment or anything I ever touched or come anywhere near me. So eventually I couldn't breathe and walked myself over to the Lenox Hill outpost on 12th and 7th. And they admitted me, gave me oxygen, gave me IV fluids, and said they wanted to transfer me to the big Lenox Hill uptown where I knew there were freezer trucks. And I said, no. And I checked myself out of there and walked home because who was going to take care of my dog? And I don't want to wind up in a freezer truck either. So it was a no-brainer. So I suffered through that for about 6 weeks. And then because all the restaurants had closed sort of very abruptly in New York, I lived above one. And I guess they left enough food for a few weeks for the rats to feast on. But after that, they migrated up to my apartment. And at one point, I was living with 30 to 40 rodents, jumping off my curtains, jumping into my bed, fighting on the floor during the night, up on their hind legs, like, I mean, a true Hitchcockian nightmare. And I had 4 exterminators, plus guys from my work, plus all kinds of everything that I could try, little things you plugged in the wall, everything. And I could not get rid of them. I could not sleep. I couldn't do anything. And finally, my mom says, oh, you know, you should use this paint that I see on Fox News. You could fix a boat with, or so I'm like, okay, you know, nothing else has worked. Maybe this Republican paint will work. So I stuffed every crevice of my apartment with steel wool and then just put this rubberized paint everywhere. And I mean, it looks really disgusting. Not a good job. But it did stop them from coming. It took a few weeks to let the ones that were stuck in there die off, but I can happily say that I've been rodent-free for over a year now, which is a really good thing. So, to say things have not really gone as planned would be an understatement. Not that I've ever had any really intricate plans in my life, but I did have one this time, and it didn't include being sick for over a year, being in a long-haul COVID program, working 3 jobs that I've worked years ago, and now suddenly I'm working them again. So I've decided, with the help of my good friend, to resurrect my career. Maybe get some commercial acting work, some catalog work. We'll see what happens. Because we all know at this point, anything can. Thanks.